The tension in the Capitol felt almost physical, like a storm cloud hovering just inches above the heads of every lawmaker in the room. Cameras clicked, murmurs rippled, and aides lingered nervously at the edges of the chamber as Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez strode toward the microphone with the focused intensity of someone who had been pushed one step too far. Earlier that morning, conservative commentator Charlie Kirk had delivered testimony during a committee hearing that was quickly going viral. He had spoken with his characteristic bravado, leveling accusations and jabs that seemed designed not to illuminate policy but to inflame emotions. Clips of his remarks flooded social media within minutes, some laughing at him, others praising him, but one thread stood out most: his pointed critiques aimed directly at AOC. And the Congresswoman was in no mood to let them slide. She placed her notes down slowly, almost ceremonially, and looked across the chamber with a calm that barely concealed the fire underneath. "Let me be perfectly clear," she began, her voice ringing out strong and uncompromised. "The testimony we heard today was not only irresponsible, it was deeply ignorant, it was uneducated, and it was insulting to the intelligence of the American people." The reaction was immediate. Gasps from the gallery, chairs shifting, a few scattered claps before they were quickly escorted into silence by parliamentary glares. AOC pressed forward, her words slicing through the heavy air as she detailed point by point where she believed Kirk had misled the public, misrepresented data, and injected unnecessary hostility into an already fragile national discourse. "This isn't entertainment," she continued. "This is the House of Representatives, and if you want to be taken seriously in this chamber, you must come prepared with facts and not grandstanding." Her rebuttal was fiery, sharp, and undeniably personal. For many, it was a cathartic release after months of rising tension around misinformation and culture war provocations. But for others, it was an uncomfortable escalation of one more frayed thread in the fabric of an already polarized Congress. Then, unexpectedly, the tone of the room shifted, because from the upper seating area, where he had been participating in a joint briefing, Senator John Kennedy stood up. The Louisiana senator, well known for his colorful metaphors, disarming wit, and folksy wisdom, requested recognition. It was a rare ask, the kind that only happens when a moment feels bigger than the rules designed to contain it. Against the backdrop of collective unease, he walked toward the floor. The room fell eerily quiet. Kennedy didn't approach like a warrior entering a battlefield. He moved like a teacher stepping into a classroom that had spun a little too far out of control. His expression was calm, almost gentle, and without raising his voice even an inch, he began. "I think," he said slowly, "that we're forgetting we're all supposed to be grown-ups here." A ripple of laughter, nervous, uncertain, moved through the room. Kennedy let it settle before continuing. "Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez, you are passionate, you are articulate, and you care deeply. No one doubts that." He paused. "But passion can become poison if we pour it straight into the veins of personal attacks." AOC looked back at him, eyes sharp yet suddenly thoughtful. Kennedy turned slightly, acknowledging the elephant in the room. "And as for Mr. Kirk, well, bless his heart, he doesn't always make it easy." A few chuckles, even AOC cracked the hint of a smile. "But whether we agree with him or not, the moment we start labeling people instead of debating their ideas, we lose the very purpose of this institution." The senator's tone remained gentle, but his words carried an unmistakable firmness, an elder statesman reminding the room of the dignity they often forgot they were meant to uphold. "Folks," he said, spreading his hands, "our fellow Americans are watching us, not for entertainment, not for drama, but for leadership." The silence that followed was intense this time, yet it was reflective, heavy with the weight of truth. AOC stepped back to the podium, but her posture had changed. The fire was still fiery but tempered now, reshaped into something steadier, more focused. She clarified her criticisms of Kirk's testimony, this time grounding them in specific points, studies, and concerns. The personal heat had melted away, replaced by a resolve that felt far more impactful. The chamber listened, truly listened, in a way it hadn't at any point earlier in the day. Kennedy nodded from the side, arms crossed loosely, satisfaction flickering over his face. He hadn't tried to silence her. He hadn't dismissed her. Instead, He'd nudged the conversation back into the realm of constructive disagreement as something the country hadn't seen enough of in years. By the time she finished, the energy in the chamber had transformed from combustible hostility into something unexpectedly productive. Reporters exchanged glances. Aides breathed out slow sighs. Even the lawmakers who rarely agreed with her found themselves quietly acknowledging one thing. The room had grown that day, and so had she. As the chamber adjourned, a strange sense of calm followed lawmakers into the hallways. The shouting match that many had anticipated never materialized. Instead, Americans watching from home witnessed something rare: two leaders from opposing sides reminding each other, and the nation, that strength isn't measured by the sharpness of one's insults, but by the wisdom to step back when the noise becomes louder than the message. In the hours that followed, clips from the exchange spread online, not the heated opening remarks, but the steadying shift that followed. Comment sections filled with surprise, relief, even hope. Because beneath all the drama, all the personalities, all the pressure, one message had emerged stronger than the conflict that sparked it. True leadership isn't about who shouts the loudest. It's about who chooses clarity over chaos, purpose over pride, and progress over personal victory. And on that turbulent afternoon in the House chamber, something extraordinary had happened. For a brief moment, Washington remembered what it was capable of.